Welcome to Travel Tech Talks. I'm your host, Jess Ogley, and today we are talking all things approval and approval workflows and how we can make it work for you. Welcome to the show, Leonard.
Hey, Jess. Really exciting to be here. Thank you so much for having me, actually. How's the podcast going?
Yeah, it's really good so far. It's been a bit nerve-wracking, I have to say, but certainly I think as the more we get into it, the more sort of like relaxed and it's coming across. So yeah, it's been great so far, and the team here have been fantastic. So
that's really awesome.
Did you want to maybe start by just giving the audience a bit of a recap of who you are, what role you play here at Serko, and how long you've been with us?
Yeah, sure. I've been with Serko coming close to 4 years now. And I work with different teams. I started off with the implementations team and then moved to engineering, and then now I'm with the comms team.
Pretty big shift.
Yeah, it's a really nice experience. I get like a holistic understanding of like the product and everything that we offer. So it's really nice. But yeah, the one thing that really gets me going is just the teams at Serko. They're so good. I mean,
we are a pretty good bunch, hey?
Yeah. Especially the comms team right now, man. Everybody in the team are just champions of the config. They're really proficient in what they do. Well, essentially, their entire mindset is all about just, making our customers succeed, just getting more and more proficient and understanding everything that the tool offers. So
yeah, cool.
Really
and maybe
nice.
that's probably a really good segue to sort of announce, what the optimization team, like what their core function is at Serko, and what a day-to-day might look for you guys, what kind of things that you're engaging with our customers, our TMC partners with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, the comms team in specific kind of work with the TMC admins from within the TMCs, and they usually, if they're struggling to work something out, they raise a Zeno support center request, and we work with the TMC admins then to kind of work on the config and try to get the results that they're looking for. And this is like a wide range of things. We're talking about approvals today, I know, but just about everything within Serko and how to configure it and make it work for the TMCs and the corporates. Well, that's where the comms team come in. And as I said, config champions. That's what they are.
Definitely. I think, the purpose of this podcast is to really deep dive into some of the most common questions, and configuration absolutely makes up a portion of that, and to sort of delve into the most, pressing items, within our workspace and the challenges and things that we come up against. And approvals is definitely hot at the moment. I think as part of our RFP process so that I look after within the partnership development team, we are definitely seeing a big uplift and a big shift in people wanting or needing to, employ an approval process. For anybody out there that might just sort of need, I guess, a high level or generic overview of the two types of approval processes we offer, could you just give us a little bit of a description about what they are?
Yeah, well, for those who don't exactly know what approvals is this really cool feature that we have with Zeno, where between your booking and the actual fulfillment, there's like a process that kicks off, and if there's a need for approval, it kind of sends out emails or it's auto-approved. And the two ones that you just spoke of, the two approvals are the active approval and the passive approval.
Go. I was going to say, what's a passive approval?
Yeah, so the active approval is essentially when somebody must come in and approve. So usually there's a booker making a booking, and this goes out to the approver, and they must manually approve. And that's what we call internally as active approvals. And passive is where there's no manual approval required. Yes, there are some sort of approvals sometimes in place. It could be automatic or just because it's within like policy restrictions or whatever. But yeah, those are the two main branches of active and passive approvals, as we call them.
Yeah, awesome. And I sort of mentioned as part of, the RFP process, it's certainly a hot topic. Once upon a time, I was in your shoes. I was in the customer optimization team. So I do have a lot of appreciation for all the configurability and the knowledge that needs to be applied to kind of come up and solve for some of these customer problems. I guess from your perspective, what is the importance of a really well-defined approval process?
once again, ever since the COVID, massive COVID experience happened and then travel started picking up, we saw a lot of corporates and a lot of TMCs raising a lot of requests to understand and work approvals into their processes. And it's so important. We sometimes almost dismiss how important it is in our heads because it's just happening in the background.
Totally. And I think before there's a landscape where just a passive approval, there weren't things like, budget constraints or limitations where somebody could go that might now need an approval process. And perhaps, internally within a corporate, their entire line of reporting has changed. And so then now there is this requirement since COVID, really that uplift to employ an active approval process. What are kind of some of the examples that you're seeing as you go through your day-to-day and some of the Zendesk tickets, like of an active approval process? What are probably your top 4 examples of the most common approval processes?
On the spot there to recollect 4, but I would say definitely some of the things, again, post-COVID was health and safety, domestic travel versus international travel with restrictions coming into play. That was something that we saw. Just streamlining the process, essentially, having the approvals on Zeno just consolidates everything onto the OBT. So it's auditable, it's just there. And, another thing that we usually see is just trying to make sure that the approvals fit in for the organization or the corporate or the TMC, the way they're setting it up for the corporate. It's to match their structure or how they like working or if they have any special processes in place. So it's not cookie cutter. So we have like a very collaborative approach when we work with each of these TMC admins for whatever corporate they're working on. But once you get it going, it's almost like magic because it's just happening in the background and it's so seamless and it's so... it's essentially, I make a booking. I know where I want the approval to go to. Once I select that, there's an email. It's pretty seamless, and it's just approved. I hope I got 4 in there. A couple of them at least. But
I was thinking, I just remember my days in the comm team, and I think there was this previous where people did have an approval, and the percentage of corporates that had an approval process back then was, I don't want to say negligible, but like it was, maybe 30% of all corporates. There was a lot of passive approval, as we said, and there was very much a mindset of, if you did have an approval process, it was 1-to-1.
Yeah.
I am the traveler, you are my approver, and you are linked in my profile. And then we start seeing that evolution of actually it should be at a cost center level or a department or across a debtor as a whole. And there might be a mix and match of different travelers that, based on their role. Some of them are auto-approved, like you can book whatever you want.
Exactly.
And other travelers that are, okay. So then it sort of becomes that, I guess, traveler type, who you are in the organization. As you said, making it work for the organization, they might have that split of different, traveler types that have different rules applied.
As you say that, I was just reminded, when we look at approvals, there's like 3 main buckets that we usually put them into. At least that's how I've put them into in my head.
We need to visualize it in our minds to make it work. I get you.
So it's usually number 1, pretty much no booking requires any approval. So everything is happening in the passive way, as you said. Number 2 is every single booking that is made requires an approval. Or number 3, this is where the uniqueness of this offering comes in my head because it's so configurable. You can have just a subset of the bookings, and it could be based on anything. It could be the content that you booked. Or it could be, are you traveling domestically or internationally? Some cost restrictions that come into play. And all of this then are governed by, I know, again, we're speaking on policies, but, there are policies and roles, as you just mentioned, and all of these together form a very nice, cohesive system. And it's just very, again, I don't want to repeat the word seamless again and again, but it actually is. And that's why I say it. But yeah.
I think as well, putting myself in the shoes of a corporate, understanding just how configurable the workflow options is really important. And, I know that the comm team take a really consultative approach when it comes to their engagement with the TMCs and having front of mind, like, what is the customer wanting to achieve? Exactly. Is it that subset of users that need a different workflow? Is it content, whether it's particular carriers or hotel chain? Is it in and out of policy? Is it that different travel type, as you said as well? Exactly. It's about, having that consultative approach And as somebody who does engage with a lot of end corporates on a daily about employing new processes to help, whatever the outcome is really deep diving, and understanding what the customer problem is, particularly, what are they trying to solve for, So, one of the features that I know that we brought out during COVID was trip budget.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wondered if you could just give us a few high-level details about what that trip budget feature is and how an approval process could be tied in.
Well, yeah. Again, trip budgets. Just to simplify it, is for each of your different sectors or for your entire trip, if you have a specific budget. So, like for instance, hey, I want to book air, car, and hotel, but my budget for air, like the policy or the trip budgets that are set by the company itself is, I cannot cross, say, $1,000 on air and say a $500 hotel, and say $500 for car.
So like a subset value for each of those different modes of travel? Yeah.
Exactly. Or even if it was for the entire travel budget itself. But in essence, if you were to exceed your budget or overshoot your budget, that's when you would automatically kick in to the approvals workflow, saying, hey, we ideally want you to book under $1,000. Looks like this plane's like gone over $50 more. So there's an immediate approval process that's kicked off. And I think it's very nice how that works, because you want to book something that's within the budget, but then it's not available.
Yeah.
And then imagine having to go back and forth with somebody to say, hey, this has happened, and all of the explanations, and by the time you come back, oops, the flight fare's gone up again.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think what's really important about that is because all that trip budget information is on the approval email, it's front and center to the approver, right? So they're getting a clear, hey, you've broken policy, the threshold was this, you've exceeded it by this much, and then choose to approve or reject based on that, right?
And again, the booker might be able to put in a reason as well to say, hey, I had to book this particular flight or this particular journey sector just because of this reason. And then that gives more context to the approver. And again, it makes the whole back and forth reduce drastically. It almost reduces friction in workplaces and just managing the entire travel experience.
On that point of reducing friction, which I think is really interesting, because, we keep seeing there's a very disjointed approval process that sits outside of the online booking tool, right? A lot of corporates might have a manual paper trail.
Yes.
It might be an email or a phone call to an approver. It might be something that exists outside of the OBT today. I guess from you, you've sort of mentioned already about the benefits of driving that through the online platform, because it's closing that loop.
Yeah.
It's reducing that paper trail and putting it all through the OBT. You've got true costs are there. You've got your lost savings information. You can make all different policy types, traveller types, or content type in or out of policy to really drive that approval process. I wonder, what other role do we play in that? Is there anything else you see that we can provide as the tech company?
Yes, at Zeno, it's really amazing. There are a lot of common challenges that we usually see with TMCs, and how the corporates are looking to work out their travel and stuff. Cost management is one thing that really comes up to the front of my mind. A lot of the corporates and TMCs, they reach out to us saying, hey, can we work out the best way to put this approval process in place? And again, as I said, there's policy and other stuff that come into play to make the system really good. What else? Again, having that information consolidated on the OBT, that's a really useful one.
And auditable, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's super important that people can see it in the online booking tool.
Exactly. I understand the paper trail and how it was super useful, but imagine having that there digitally. You're not having to keep a track of everything that's happening. The tool's doing that for you, and that eases a lot of pain, again, for the TMC when they're trying to do.
And one of the things I think, not a lot of corporates realise is, as the tech provider, we can actually drive approval processes for offline bookings that are created as well, right?
Yes. So that's another really cool one. Being able to kick in approvals while they're requeued back into the system or to the booking tool for approvals to kick in. That's a really good one. Another thing that really keeps coming to my head is it's just the way there's the right information goes to the right people at the right time. And again, I know it seems pretty simple to say it, but in the grand scheme of things, when you have an approval process and the right person is able to approve your travel, and it's happening pretty much in an instant.
I think that really plays a part when it comes to maybe, more complex travel, sort of like international travel as well.
Yep.
With a feature of that we have that is the multi-tier approval process. So where corporates want to get a little bit more complicated than the standard one-to-one, or picking a single approver at the end of the booking, where they might say, hey, yeah, you can book international online, we want you to, but it's not just going to go to your first line manager, it's also going to go to a department head and then maybe somebody else as well. That's exactly what you're talking about, like making sure it's going to the right people. It's a designated workflow for a particular reason, and we're pushing it off to the right people that need to know about it, right?
100%. Man, multi-tier is like a golden nugget, if you ask me. It's so cool because, imagine all these approvals that you have to get. It's not just simple one-to-one linking, as you said. If you're looking to go travel internationally, there's a couple of departments that come into play. You might have to go health and safety. You might have to go, your direct line manager, but also your skip manager, whatever it is. But all of that can be set up within the tool. And like multi-tier, again, is a little more complex just to look at and say, oh, I need this set up.
Yeah.
But after that first step, and it's pretty much so. Again, I don't want to go back to the word seamless, Jess, but I keep going back there because it's approvals.
But that's the point of our tool, right?
Exactly.
Is to make what seemingly from the outset is a complicated process seamless.
100%.
So once a corporate has realised what their need is, consult with that TMC to understand how the OMBT or your tech provider can provide that level of complexity or not that they might need. And if the TMC doesn't know, they've got the brilliant team like you guys, to come and help swoop in and support them in whatever that outcome is that they want to achieve as well, right?
I was just about to say, I mean, for the TMC admins who have access to the Zeno support center, there's like a wealth of information with like articles and stuff. But if anybody's stuck, they usually reach out to us. And again, it's that collaborative approach. It's not cookie cutter. We're all working together to try and make the customer succeed, so that the end user and the corporates and the TMCs, everybody working together to kind of make this entire thing work for everybody.
Yeah. I remember, I think just while before we wrap up, I remember getting a ticket back in the day of like what was a very complicated ask. And it was the challenge that the customer had was, I need to define in my booking workflow the difference between billable and non-billable travel. And I need to be able to select that through the booking process. And I need a different subset of approvers based on whether that's billable or non-billable. Can you do it? And, scratched my head for a little bit and thought, oh my goodness, how could we do this? And there's a myriad of ways that we could maybe set it up, and it could become very convoluted, but simply put, to address that particular need for that professional services, we ended up configuring what's called our order number logic, which at a really high level, as you know, is the ability for us to nominate, a custom field in which a drop down, in this case, billable or non-billable, was available in that custom field, and attached to each of the option there of billable or non-billable, we're able to define those different approvers. And it's by way of an upload. And the great thing about the workflow or approval workflow using that order number logic is that the corporate or the TMC can actually control that upload themselves. So even giving the ability back to a corporate to maintain that process themselves, because as we know today, a corporate has a chat to their TMC and who might then chat to us about how we could set it up, is, obviously that conversation happens and they set it up, but that if those values do change over time, that they're able to actually own that, which I think is super powerful as well.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think, if there's anything that I can, try and give my 2 cents on, it's just working with any tool, and the more proficient you become with it, it just makes your life easier. So if there were tickets like that back then, there's like a bunch of tickets that come in, especially again, coming back to approvals. And we get a lot of tickets. The asks are all very different. So we're working with everybody closely, trying to essentially make them succeed in what they're trying to get at. And Zeno Support Center is your best friend. This is literally what I tell people nowadays when I talk to somebody on the TMC side. There's so much information out there. There's articles out there that are really outlining how you can configure it and just understand the whole feature in general. And
what would your encouragement be for a corporate client who's wanting to understand more about how the technology can support their needs?
Well, work with your TMC. Well,
Yep.
I genuinely 100% say if a corporate needs to kind of get at something, rely on your TMC's understanding and knowledge of how they use Zeno. Work with them, and they usually will have the answer. And if they don't, hey, we're the next best friend, right? They usually reach out to us, and we work with them, and we usually help in trying to configure and give the results. Again, the reason why I'm saying the comms team, the customer optimizations team, is a champion in config is because day in, day out, we receive queries like this. And there are so many ways you can try and achieve the same thing, but it's about how you can try and get to it that works the best for that corporate or for that particular ask. And I think...
Nicely said.
Yeah.
Really nicely said.
And I think
that's a really good way to sort of, I guess, wrap it up, is that there are so many ways
Yes.
that have a conversation, talk to your TMC, talk to us. There's a myriad of ways we can do it.
Yeah.
So have a discussion. Yep. Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Leonard. I really appreciate it.
That's all good.
Thanks
Jess,
for
this
coming on
was
the show.
lovely. And hope
See you next
have
time.
Exactly.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.